Bortot? Not really tiny. Bortot.
Yeah, Bortot.
Okay. He's the guy for the Red Bull Music Academy. You're responsible for content in general, digital strategy, everything. Content strategy, media, digital communication.
Yeah, I essentially put all the marketing buzzwords that I ever picked up in my life in my job description. So it sounds like and I'm responsible for the fact that we speak English on this panel because I don't speak Portuguese, so I'm based out of Germany, and yeah, I help run this project called the Red Bull Music Academy. It's a workshop and festival, has been around for 15 years, has happened in Sao Paulo actually 11 years ago, and around our yearly main event, which will be in New York this year in May, we do a lot of things, including up to like 500 events in 80 countries last year. We run a couple of media properties as well, which has been kind of our latest transition in the past 2 years, an online radio station, an online magazine. We do all sorts of print publications, video series, and work on developing artists. And,
before Red Bull, you were into hip-hop magazines, right?
I was a music journalist, yeah. That was during my uni days, so I edited a magazine called Juice. It's a hip-hop magazine, it's in German, so not too many people read it, but it was a great time. And then 5 years ago, I joined the Red Bull Music Academy.
We also have Mathieu. Good job. The Who. So he's responsible for Deezer in Latin America, right? Or the head of the operation for Latin America, right?
Exactly.
And Deezer is a streaming service just launched in Brazil 2 weeks ago, and also the whole region.
Yeah, actually Brazil was one of the last countries that we opened in Latin America, jointly with Venezuela for different reasons. So now we're pretty much live everywhere except Cuba in Latin America. I could tell the story, but maybe you would.
I just wanted to explain what Deezer is, except for Cuba now.
Yeah. You haven't opened yet.
And here we have Rodrigo DJ Gorky, producer, DJ, and also one of the brains behind Bonde Rolê, right? And I believe everybody knows about this amazing band. And, he's not from Curitiba, as I expected. I know this guy for 5 years, 10 years already, and just learned that he's not from Curitiba, but the music matters, right? So
yes, I hope so.
what else have you been doing lately besides Bonde Rolê?
I've been doing a lot of things actually, like besides DJing and producing stuff and like being part of the band. Me and Peter were also managing this other band called Produtor, and we also produced their record, and we've been doing like soundtracks and like scores for advertisements as well. It's been something we've always done, like with using our own songs, but now like doing it with like other things like people send me, I want a song like this and this and that. That's what I've been doing.
As a musician, I mean, you have your, let's say, your outro, your own stuff to do, right? You have Bonde Rolê, and you also are like producing. Is that the word for Badawa, or?
Yeah, I've been.
It's more than that, right? It's.
Yeah, I've been like, we produced the record like as musicians, and we also like manage them.
Their career, right?
Yeah.
Is it something aside from those digital times, or because there were experiences like this in the past? I know during the '60s, bands that were managing other bands and so on. But can we say that this is an analog eyes to the digital times, or no? Shut up, Mauro. Nothing.
Well, I can make the connection if you want. I'll make the connection for you. Basically, what happens is that nowadays, like with the velocity of things happening, like you can be like the most hyped band in 1 year, and then the next year nobody wants to hear about you. So what we've been trying to do, like for the past like a year and a half too, is like to open up our options to keep doing what we like to do, and And yeah, and so that's like sign of the times, like, because then we can still like be creative, but at the same and work with something we love to do, but at the same time, it's not like, I don't know, if we were, if we had lived the 90s or something like that, we would still like have a proper like band career. But nowadays it's more like Bonde became more, how can I say it, my hobby, and then everything else is what like makes the money for us.
You're helping others to develop their own careers.
Yes.
Is it something that I can connect with the Red Bull Digital Academy? Not careers, I would say, but talents. And do you see it also as if you connect to the 60s, for example, where we used to have those old-fashioned producers helping to develop the band sounds? Is it possible to make a connection?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is that what you just touched on was what success means these days, right? Like back in the days, I think you had made it when you signed a record deal, and that was kind of the end game. You signed a record deal, and then that essentially meant that you had a career for a while. You could go on tour, you would produce a certain amount of records, maybe sell a lot, maybe not sell so much, but it was very clear that was the career, right? So these days it's so different, and funnily enough, I had a conversation with some like an American journalist who was like, so we had this rap music academy, like who's really famous from your participants? I'm like, who's successful, who's big? I'm like, I don't know what that means really. Like there's people like, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy Flying Lotus or Hansen Moore, like they have a decent career, like, you know, they play at big festivals, they get like 20K per show, they are regarded as some of the most influential producers of our time. But then there's other people who are not that famous or not that big, not even in this sort of niche world, but still I think would consider their life or their careers in music successful because they do so many different things. Like could be a DJ, could be producing, working behind the scenes, could be using their expertise as an artist to work at an entity like Beatport or something like that, right? So I think the whole idea and the whole concept of what success and what a career means these days has changed so much through the internet, and this is something that we as the Rhythm Music Academy have always tried to get across as well. That yes, there are people out there like, you know, the Lady Gagas and the Rihannas of this world who obviously still make their money by selling records and playing big shows, but there's so many other different ways of having a career and like creating revenue for itself and make a living off of music, and I think that's inspiring and a great thing about it these days.
And regarding success, I saw that Deezer, for example, you have those editor choices for the band, so and you also have some rankings, right? The most popular bands or most played or whatsoever. So maybe there is still a need for those old-fashioned rankings in this digital world. Let's say Billboard stuff right now. So how do you guys see this?
Yeah, I think we are only at the beginning of the thing that you can imagine around data from the type of service that we present, because you can imagine many different things. So today, as of today, we have, of course, the classical rankings per genre, per artist, per the most played song of one artist, the most played album also in a specific genre. Above that, of course, we always, the key difference from the other ones is that we invest a lot in the enjoyment, just to put up front what really someone, not an algorithm, has found interesting and new. And so we keep updating every week, twice a week actually, with new stuff that Yasmin and the team here, something she really likes. But at the end, just to bounce on what you were saying, I think the main jump or difference that streaming has introduced is exactly what you were saying. Success doesn't come from being sold, because creating music and putting it in MP3 and sending it to the streaming platform or even iTunes doesn't cost anymore. And so at the end, you have a success if you get listened to, and we get remuneration for artists based on the number of times they are listened to. So all year long, all career long, they will earn money if their last album is a classic. They will earn money, probably the same money every year for 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
And back in the analog days, it was just a question of being printed on CD. The the number 1 track could be not listened at all, and the number 10 listened many times. It doesn't make any difference. So it's changing a lot, and you're right. It's also a question about what is success. I mean, being printed once on a CD at that time was a big hit success, but you see careers that have been broken because there was no second time. Now it's different. It's probably more. I mean, the one person that actually found its public will have a connection all through life with its public and see the evolution. Really interesting for artists, I think.
Maybe one thing to add, like just because you mentioned the longevity. So I don't know if you know this movie called, I think it's called Crates or something. It's a movie about record collecting, right? So there's the scene where DJ Shadow, who's like a record collector and DJ from the US, he goes into his record shop, and it's a regular record shop, so he goes downstairs in the basement, which is not open to the public, but he owns the owner of the shop. So he comes there, and I've never seen that many records in one place. It's probably like 2 million records or something like that. It's just crazy, like, you know, until the ceiling, just records, like dusty, crazy amount of records. And it's this crazy, like, goosebump scene when you see it, and then he walks around and he just pulls out one random record, and it's like, so this guy here once had the dream to make the best records of all times, and you see 2 million of them, right? So I think because people say a lot, you know, obviously there's like problems with music being on the internet as well, but I think back in the days, once you ended up in the bin where nobody really cared about your record anymore, like that was over. There was no chance anyone would ever find that record again and bring it back to the forefront. Now, these days, where like everything is somewhat stored and archived, even though a record doesn't make it to be like a huge hit, and for some reason it can still be there and can even create revenue after years to come, because people would find it eventually or stream it or something like that.
Can we say that, is it easier now to produce or to create your, because I mean everybody's dream is to create the most important record ever, right? We still use this word anyway. I mean, I know lots of bands, they launch just singles or whatever, but it's still a dream somehow. And I was wondering if it's easier and at the same time it's not as important, or somehow it's not as...
What has changed is that it's easier to get the public to know you, but to know your CD, because you can send the MP3 and YouTube, and if it's good, people will viralize it. What's more difficult is that there are so many so many music being created, is that people just don't have time to listen to everything. So I don't know if it's at the end easier or harder, but something is getting much more easy, and other ones probably harder. But which is the question for the artist, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if it has anything to do, but I was going to talk about my experience with the boys from Bortot. They're like 20, 21, and 22. And when we got an offer from a label here in Brazil, and the first thing we told them was like, well guys, you can do it yourselves and we'll help you out and all that. But they were like, no, we want to get signed to a label. We want to get our record out. We want to have the CD. We want to have the vinyl. And we're like, well, we can do it, but they were like, no, it's all about the label. But then it's funny that like most of their success comes from videos, and but still they still have this old thought of like having a record and have it on record stores and the CD stores, and
would it be more glamorous somehow still? I mean,
yeah, and I think
you can be the number one on the iTunes store, or you
they
can sell 1 billion CDs.
But yeah, but they can sell out. Like they can, like their last video was like 200,000 views. Like no, actually 100,000 views in like 2 days. But it's all about numbers. But then when it comes to like I can be ahead on the internet, but I have my record. So it sort of makes them like how can I say, legit. They by having the record and the CD, they're more legit than all the other internet acts, like the new ones. And I was gonna add 2 more things. Again, I don't know if it has anything to do with the conversation, but One is that the consumption of those CDs and the vinyl, it's not about the music anymore. I think we talked about it. Like, it's not about the music anymore. It's like because people are gonna download it anyway. It's about having the
Something
thing.
physical.
Yeah, it's about like having it as a souvenir. Because like most of the records they sold like the vinyl pressing of the record. People don't have a vinyl player anymore. They just want to have the record
It's like
as a souvenir and then
like
have
the
them
T-shirt
sign-
used
yeah.
to be in the past.
Yes, sort of like that.
I spoke to this guy who manages the label called Stone Throw. It's an independent hip-hop label from California, right? And they have this artist, Mayor Hawthorne, who's a singer. And they sold 75% of the vinyl copies they sold through Urban Outfitters, which is a clothing retailer. And they have a bit of a retro, like the whole shop looks like a Lana Del Rey video, right? So they sell vinyl at the counter, like kids would buy chocolate at the supermarket. at the counter.
They say vinyl players.
Yeah.
I bought mine.
75% they would sell at like, Urban Outfitters.
And
That's crazy.
the funny thing, they have vinyl frames, so you don't even have to like listen or open up the record. You just put it on a frame and post it on your wall. And
Like the cool things.
yeah. And the second thing I was gonna talk about on the wall was that one thing we saw is that how do you say it? Is that the fans, as soon as the record was out, like 2 weeks afterwards, they were already asking for the new record. And we were like, it took like 5 months to do this one. Just like enjoy it calmly. But even like, and even with the band and the label nowadays, they're having struggles. Again, we can relate to the analog and
Yeah.
digital era, because like with the boys, like since they started out like by doing videos of their songs, and then after that doing the EP, and after that doing the record, they're all like really video oriented. So they want to post like, but they want to do videos every 2 months, and then the label is like, no, like we still gotta work with radio, we still gotta work on TV. So like the single needs to last like 4 to 6 months, and they were like, no, we want to have the next video out in 2 months. So it's been a real struggle with them, and I think it's again a sign of like the new times, like people wanting to consume things faster, but then they don't appreciate it that much.
The music consumption is totally related to video consumption nowadays. There are lots of researches and so on. People listening to music on
On
YouTube or
YouTube,
Deezer
yeah.
or Spotify. And, but especially this video thing calls my attention. I mean, I used to work for MTV, and I saw the whole industry collapse in a way. The video clip, or like the internet star killed the video star. Right? The video star killed the radio star, then the internet star killed the video star. But then, wait, well, video is super important, right? So, you guys, for example, you deal with music, right? Or how do you
Yeah.
put it
On the
into
website,
the
you get
strategy?
a bunch of videos,
Okay.
but I think video is much more to discover artists, and then once, well, the main usage of our streaming service is clearly on the mobile offline when you run, journey or wandering around or whatever. So you're not actually watching. So I don't think it's exactly the same. I mean, it's clearly complementary.
Okay.
I also disagree, I must say. Like, I mean, obviously video is important, just as important as it used to be, but it was always a second layer to what it was, right? Back in your MTV days, you had the video, and then people would go and buy the record and listen to it. And these days, as you said, you go on YouTube and you find out about bands, and you want to understand what it is. And
Is it possible to say that video is still a promoting part of it, or
it's part of
because they want to launch videos every week? the
Every
band.
2 months, but
Every
it's
2 months.
yeah.
So it's to promote each music, or
Yeah, because
do you agree?
they feel like with the kids, they with the Bonde kids, they wanted, instead of like promoting the record, promoting like the song, they want to do a video for every single thing they do. So like their idea was to have like videos for all the songs in the record, and when they did the record, they were like, well, I know how this gonna video, the video for this song is gonna be like in this and this and that one. And something that people always ask is like, when's the next video coming out? But I still think it's a part of it, because like when people see their videos, they tend to like download the CD and then get to meet the band, go to the live concert. And it's still a gateway to meet the band. I think it's a really good one, but it doesn't like I don't feel about like just having the video. I still feel that the record itself is more important than just the video. But one thing I was gonna bring up is that it's something that I've been seeing for a while. It's like in the 60s, it was all like singles oriented, right? With all the singles, and then the concept albums started to appear, like the Beach Boys ones, the Beatles ones, and then like 70s and 80s and 90s, it was all very record album oriented, but then it got back to singles again. Like especially nowadays, it's all about the singles, not about the record itself anymore, and it's something that saddens me, but.
And when you see bands like Banawar, don't you think it's kind of a band concept? Or I mean, you don't have the record as a concept, but maybe the bands, or maybe Lady Gaga is a concept more than no.
Sort of, but you still have to like your output needs to like be like I don't know, but it's all about it's up to the artist, but nowadays it's all like very singles oriented instead of record album oriented. Maybe it's a sign of the times as well. But.
No, I was just saying that I was thinking that probably video is excellent for a first date with the music. Like you discover the music, the visual aspect of the video. I mean, you get diving into the atmosphere and all the universe of the band really quickly. But the video, I mean, you watch it once, you watch it twice. I doubt that you're gonna watch it 10 times instead of, and then afterwards, if you really get in love with the music and you decide to marry it, since I started dating and then you get married, you won't, of course, keep the video with you because you're not gonna use the video all day long and watch it and watch it.
So are you saying you don't like looking at your wife anymore?
You want to get me into trouble.
Come on, have cameras.
I think what's also important to note is that the concept of video has changed, just like the concept of what a musical product has changed. Like back in the days, you had whatever 3 singles, 3 really expensive videos, and the end game was to sell your record. Right? These days, it's like what a music video is and what it isn't is so different. Like sometimes for a lot of like dance music tracks, because we are obviously here at like a more electronic dance music festival as well, so like sometimes fans would just create something, put it online, and it gets like millions of views, which is not even the official video, and then like a lot of artists, you know, like they would just take a camera, run around with their iPhone, film something, put it on their thing. It's a video, which is great, I feel, right? Like, you know, like it's, you have to have a different kind of frequency of when you put stuff out, just like music, where you know, a remix or some edit or some different format can be almost like an extension of what you did, and it's just as important as the actual songs, the same as with video. So, and I think there's like some interesting approaches to this whole approach of like having a video for every single. Like some bands I think have done amazing stuff in that area as well, but it obviously means something very, very different to before. Like it's almost less of a commercial than it used to be.
We've been discussing here music strategy for musicians, for bands, and also music consumption. And you all, I mean, you have a global role and level. You have a regional, big region role, and you played all around the world. Is it possible to say that you see a difference between regions in terms of music consumption and the way musicians behave to promote their music? If you compare Europe to US to Latin America, or
We've been live 2 weeks in Brazil, so it's
Yeah, I
pretty
know.
soon
But
to
you probably studied before.
draw a conclusion. Actually, my feeling is that you get people have you can actually pattern certain behaviors, of course, but you have more similarities between the techno lovers from Rio and the techno lovers from Paris and London. They are most closely, behaving in a more close way than the sertanejo from Rio to the samba lover from Rio just next door.
It's not geographic.
No, I think really it's getting massively, worldwide. Everyone is influencing everyone, and this is more like a tribe. You can see actually tribe forming, and people get friends pretty much everywhere because there are more travels, more influence. I mean, we are living in a world where a South Korean guy hit the record of YouTube. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. Like 3 years ago, no one would have that opinion on it.
But do you think this is unlucky that like Michel Teló and Psy, these things that happen, or this is something that it's possible to become more frequent nowadays, like from now on, or it's just an accident that happened? Like you guys, like, I don't know what you think, because this is
I think it's going to be
happened with
it's
Michel
a
Teló, and
question
then-
of chaos theory, like butterfly units. So probably, yeah, we live in a more chaotic way, because back in the times where really the thing was to get into a record and then get to the public, you had really few numbers of doors that you needed to open to get access. Now you have so many doors, and everyone actually can happen to open a door, and it's a good one. So I think accident may happen more frequently, in my opinion, and people get really curious about new way. I mean, I saw it. I was in France, like for when Michel Teló just exploded, and people discovered this new kind of music in France. No one would listen to that before, and they kind of like it. Like, of course, it's famous here, so people got used to this new music. Something it really sounded different. So I'm guessing in every country you have a new genre that will explode when it's the good moment, with the good guy or girl singing, with the good video explaining the atmosphere. So I think it's going to be more frequent. My take.
I agree, and this is on various levels also. I mean, obviously you have that level. I think what's interesting to note about this Gangnam Style dude is that he probably is the first person ever to reach 1 billion people and not have made enough money for the rest of his life. Like, I don't know how much money he made. Probably at the moment he's doing alright. But
they said, yeah, they published that it was $8 million for him. So
for publishing?
8 million for YouTube. And 4
YouTube
million
made
for
8 million and 4 million goes to him.
Okay, well then.
So it's good for like, but
Yeah, I mean, it depends. If you live the Gangnam lifestyle, maybe not. Well, I mean, okay, then that was totally unqualified. I have never said that. So that guy is doing all right. But I mean, there's other people who have 1 million views on YouTube, which is an insane number. Like 1 million people. Imagine 1 million people. That's a lot of people. Okay, and they still don't make a lot of money. So I think that's interesting to note. But the accidents that you just mentioned, I think they always happen. Like you had Lambada or something like that. It was #1 in Germany when I first went to a party or something like that. Back before the Second World War, and but there is like the accidents happen on different levels. Like just another example from, let's say, the Red Bull Music Academy world. So this is Guy Hudson Moore, right? He's from Scotland, called Hudson Moore. He's a beats producer from Scotland, very Scottish guy, like the whitest guy alive ever. And he just signed to Kanye West's label and is now an in-house producer for these people and made beats for all sorts of R&B superstars, and that is something that 5 years ago wouldn't have happened. Like that was purely to the power of the internet, because even Kanye West at times, when he doesn't say stupid things about his wife on Twitter, goes to YouTube and checks what people listen to, and he found out about that. So I think these things happen all the time, and this is something that doesn't happen on a Michel Teló, whatever, 500 million views level, but it happens and it creates actual careers. So to me that's even more interesting and more inspiring to see that people through the internet can hit that point where they can actually make a living of their music and reach quite a lot of people all around the world with interesting music as well, without having to have that lucky punch. So the answer is yes, I think so.
You are successful. Bonde do Rolê is successful overseas, right?
Yeah. We think like it's successful because we get to travel and we don't make a lot of money at all. No thousands.
I mean, is it possible to connect somehow to this question in terms of like being successful overseas? How did it happen? When you first noticed that, oh shit, I have fans in US, or
yeah, but I was gonna just add to what the guy said, that I think the whole Michel Teló, like exploding, for example, it's all about, for me, I think it's all about like being at the right place at the right time with the right material. Like, for example, Michel Teló was like, he got like, because we were intrigued by it and we tried to go, so how come he got like so big? And then we thought, we started checking it, and then we found out that it was all about this Messi, the soccer player, like singing one of the tracks, or like dancing to one of the tracks on a YouTube video, and he was like at his like hypest moment, and then everybody went to check out, like, so how's the song, like what is this? And then I think what happened to us was sort of the same thing. Like we were just doing something for fun, and then first thing we did was, I'll add it to it later, but we sent it to some people that we thought would like the songs, and ended up that Diplo liked it, and he was like, well, I'm starting a label and I want you guys to be my first band on it. And of course, then like 6 months afterwards, we were doing tours in Europe and the US, like all over. But that was like 2006. And then after that, it was like sort of a continuation of what we've been doing. But
did you know him, or did you just hit him up on MySpace?
Oh, it was MySpace back then.
But did you know him before in real life, or did you
actually, I was sort of pissed at him because what happened was I started DJing in like 2002, and one of the things I usually did a lot, because like I started out DJing because of Stowax and too many DJs, and they were all about like just do whatever you want, or just play whatever you want, just make people dance. And what happened was that I was already like doing a lot of body funk tracks with electronic beats as well, and trying to mix it all up with rock, etc., etc. And I was doing that for like 2-3 years, and then he played one night at this place in Sao Paulo, and everybody was like, oh, he makes body funk with Daft Punk. And I was like, I've been doing that for 3 years, but the difference was that he was like an American guy that was like really connected, and I was just a kid living in Curitiba. And then after that, I was sort of pissed, and we did like the first track, dissing him, like, oh, so like the guy comes over and everybody keeps talking that, oh, he did that, oh, we've been doing that for a long time. And then we sent him the track and he liked it. And then from there on, it all like became like a good friendship. But one thing that we did was that was like 2005, I think. First thing we did was all about trying to reach the people we thought it would, trying to reach the people that we thought that they would like the songs. So we sent the songs to Diplo and a bunch of like We sent it to Daniel Haxman and everybody who was like putting out like body funk compilations and but trying to get a record deal or distribution or something. And in the end, it was Diplo who got the label going. But I don't think nowadays it would matter.
But we were talking about creators in the end, about influencers, about opinion leaders, right? I mean, Messi is an opinion leader for Michel Teló and Diplo was. So
Yeah, it was for us.
and if you see Deezer and other services, you have the editorial choices. Is it possible to say that this is an analog thing during digital times, or no? We have now more possibilities in terms of creators and opinion leaders, because in the past, maybe if you were a band, you would depend on a journalist or something like this, and now you have more, or no, it's the same? What's your opinion?
I think it's sort of the same, but with different people now. For example, like you get Diplo. He was just a DJ in Florida that worked his ass off to try to make something new, and he ended up becoming someone who everybody goes to. Like, oh, he has a good taste, so I'm gonna go look what he's been listening to, what he's been doing. But I think that still happens. But instead of like journalists and big things, it's all more tribal. Like you guys were saying, it's all about the tribes nowadays. Because for example, if Diplo got Michel Teló, he wouldn't do a thing for him because it doesn't connect to his audience.
Okay. So Messi connects with the possible audience for Michel Teló better than Diplo.
Just look at like Michel Teló's fans. They're all you're gonna check. They're all probably like soccer fans.
Okay.
I think what hasn't changed is that it still depends on the chances you get to meet the good guys, the good influencer that really likes your music and will work on your watermap. So this hasn't changed at all. What has changed is that there are no more. I think there was no more recipe. For instance, the Michel Teló story of getting identified by the players of a great team, and then the word got out, and it would be a success. I mean, if you, I've heard that in Brazil now you can pay footballers to dance your music when they score a goal. And this just doesn't work, because once you get to know that they're actually paid to get the dancing. You know, it would be too easy. So what has changed, and I think it's totally digital or maybe organic or whatever you want to call it, is that there are no longer any recipe. You still have to focus on being authentic with your music and trying your best effort at it. And then if you're lucky and you get to be identified by the right guy at the right time who really loves it, you probably have success. But I think that would be too easy that you have an ABC recipe that you can follow.
One thing I usually for people who are like, oh, I wanna be big in Brazil or something, and the first thing we tell them is that, well, you gotta have your own thing. You know, you gotta have the differential. You know, you don't want to sound like Lady Gaga. You don't want to sound like Rihanna. You need to do something that you like, but at the same time it's unique, and that will like be able to connect with other people. But if you do something like Lady Gaga, it will just be why we have that if we have Lady Gaga.
Is that really true? I mean, I'd love to think that it is that way, and I think like if you look at everyone who's really, really big, then it's actually the case. But if you look at like dance music, for example, like is Armin van Buuren really different from Paul van Dyk in a way? Is he? I mean, it's not my expertise of music, but I feel like this is something that has definitely changed with the new channels. That like to me it seems more easier to just copy someone's route to success, just do exactly the same, try to be as similar to that, and you can have decent success with it if you play your cards right.
Maybe we are back to the success discussion again, maybe.
well, it's true, but I mean,
I agree with you. There are lots of successful
this,
acts that are just copycats, right?
yeah, and this has always been the case. I mean, obviously, like one of the things that always come up when people talk about the internet is how democratic it is and stuff like that. I don't believe in that. I think what you just said is still important about like you need to be lucky that the right people pick you up. Like, and if you produce an app, you need to be lucky that iTunes likes it and puts it on their front page. So this is how you get an app. People like you think it's worth mentioning in their editorial section, or people who ever run the editorial department at Deezer. But you know what I mean, like back in the days it used to be Rolling Stone and whatever, Billboard magazine, and now it's other things. They might not be journalists anymore in a traditional way, but it's still influencers. So democracy, I don't believe in it. And the second thing is like this whole originality thing. Like I think it works for some people, but it's not necessarily true. And I think it's also unfair to tell people who are not successful that probably you're not original enough, because there's a lot of original people out there who don't enjoy success at all. And I mean, I understand.
Yeah, but it's so much harder because, for example, like if you're not, let's say, like if you have like a original band, it's a lot easier for those people who can say who can put you up like on in the front of iTunes or something. It would be a lot easier for them to talk about you than like just being a copycat.
No, I agree. And like, I mean, obviously, and like as a music fan, I would even more agree. But if I was a manager, obviously I would be like, hey, do something that is really special, so people have a reason for you to listen to. But I mean, if you go back to the title of this panel or whatever, the analog thinking in digital times, I think the one thing that's important to note is that with the overdose that we currently have, I mean, everyone knows that it's impossible to keep up with everything that people upload. Like, if you just listen to whatever DJ mix goes up on the 3 websites that you like per day, you already don't have a life anymore. So it's just impossible to check everything. So I guess we really hit a point where the whole idea of editorialized things and curating things, which is probably the most popular word ever, but just this whole idea of like somebody recommending something to you is just as important as it used to be, and just with the only difference that it now happens on the internet and it doesn't happen in a print magazine anymore.
Yeah. You don't agree with the because some people say that okay, your friends are more important than ever because you have Facebook and you have Twitter or whatever.
Where do they get it from? I mean, yes, sometimes, right? I come across like this amazing guy from Venezuela at the Rebel Music Academy that I really like, and then I pass it on to my friends and they pass it on. But like I didn't like that. Usually doesn't lead to an international career. Like, and this whole idea of people just going on Facebook and see what their friends like. They like it because somebody else liked it, and they liked it because somebody else recommended it to them. Like this whole organic career, like of just somebody discovering it on a flea market in Peru and then put it on Facebook and then it goes crazy big from there. I don't believe in it. I'm not really aware that something like that ever happened. And yes, the direct influence is more your friends than it used to be a music magazine. Like we bought a music magazine, we were like, oh, it's the Rolling Stones, right? And these days it's more like, oh, Facebook, or Deadmau5, but still, like somebody invented Deadmau5 at some point. So I don't really believe in it.
And in terms of what's successful, the references maybe change, right? Or not? I mean, if you think that okay, you have the magazine cover to say this guy is booming or something, and now
fan numbers.
Fan numbers maybe.
Just like YouTube views. Yeah.
YouTube views, would that be the measure? Do you have a unique measure for how would you compare with the old days, with the magazine cover days?
I have no idea. Actually, I do. Wait. There's this website. I forgot the name. That it counts like every time you. I think it's like hype meter or something.
It's like hype meter is amazing.
Yeah, it's like it compares like YouTube views plus like how many times your names was mentioned and like how many shares on Facebook all at the same time, because we actually use that to like try to sell a video for this sunglasses company. They were like, oh, wow, here it is. Like,
metrics.
Yeah, but I don't really feel that we need that nowadays. Like except for those things when you try to get money out of like, a brand to do something else. But
Or
I don't
Deezer.
feel what.
Or Deezer.
No, with Deezer it doesn't work.
Yeah, I know.
That's
Yeah,
what brands. I
it's-
mean, there's this hype cycle of artists who are really hip or something like that, and like every single brand wants to work with them. Like my favorite example is this rapper Theophilus London or whatever he's called, right? He just at some point somebody decided he's the hippest guy in the world, and all of a sudden like everyone from Sprite to Toyota started throwing money at him. So I think this is kind of a new model for success that didn't really exist because brands are so interested in working with music anymore. With something like Deezer, that's totally not the case. Like, you know, people decide what they want to listen to. It's not some fabricated thing.
Yeah.
It's democratic in a way, much more.
Well, it is democratic. It is, but
Because if you put something bad up front and people will listen once and don't like it, you don't have any. You won't hit big numbers, and if it's one thing that really needs to be heard a lot.
But it's true. But I mean, if the Rolling Stones put like a band on
No, of
cover in the
course.
70s, and
No,
it was really
I was
good.
agreeing with your first comment that it just doesn't happen like that from nowhere.
Yeah.
You have to get relay from influential people that would tweet about it or write articles, and those may not be the Billboard and Rolling Stone of the past. Even if I think Rolling Stone and Billboard still are really pretty influential, but it could be new guys from football to whatever TV presenter that just with a tweet could really make things grow.
What I found funny is that, you know, we spoke about, because you went by record shopping before this thing, so we spoke about analog things and so on that still exist. So I just heard that Pitchfork started a new format, which is called the cover story. So they will essentially do cover stories. Like you go on the website and you just see one story. And it's like emulating what print, like they are the ones that killed print magazines, and now they go back to doing cover stories. I thought that was quite funny. It's almost like whatever. I don't know, Instagram starting a poster shop or something.
Yeah, I was.
Probably how I make money.
Yeah.
Just one last question before we open. Maybe they have, but I would like to propose an exercise here. Would be, let's say you work for Red Bull, you work for Deezer, you work for yourself somehow, or for your new things, and what it would be 30 years ago. You're in the same position. You have to do the same thing you have to do now, but let's put it before the internet era or somehow how it would be. You're crazy.
I would be a teacher.
Why?
Because let's see, I would become like this one of those awful like math teachers that has like a really bad habit of like record shopping and wouldn't let his kids like touch the records. That's how I imagine myself
You're
like
saying
30
that
years
there
ago.
would be no Bonde de Rolê 30 years ago?
No,
And why is
definitely
that?
not. Because like
What changed it?
Because, for one, like this is me talking about being an artist. Like, cause like I don't play instruments that well. I can say I'm good. I'm a decent DJ, but I'm not a good musician. Like I don't play like everybody did like back 30 years ago. I don't know how to do that. Number one, because then I wouldn't have like this proper software or like, because the computer helped out like basically everything, because it made everything easier, and not only by the creative part of it, but also the let's say the spreading of it, because when we did the first track, what we did was we set up a MySpace account and we started sending the address to all our friends. Back 30 years ago, I don't think number one, we wouldn't have made any songs, because we would have to have the studio, and years ago,
just
92,
it can be
82.
before the
No,
internet.
I wouldn't have a four.
Doesn't have to be 82 or.
I wouldn't even have a 4-track, but I wouldn't be able to do the song. I wouldn't be able to send it out to my friends unless there was like, it would like be like 100 times like more difficult than it is nowadays. So Matt,
I think Deezer 30 years ago, Deezer would have created a radio, and it's funny because radio, the law in France, actually the law that actually freed radio, that let everyone get the ability to create a radio, was 84. So probably in 83, it would have started the way Deezer started, like in a pirate way. So it's the analogy gets sense. The only thing that would have been different is that if back then we had launched a paid subscriber radio, I don't think it would have make any sense. But it's the closest thing I can imagine. On demand, the part on demand would have been kind of difficult on a technological way. But
I would probably be either a social worker or a journalist or an A&R at the record label, or I would work in advertisement like Madman style and drink wine for lunch and touch and whatever exactly and abuse my secretary. But I think the interesting thing about everything is that like kind of I do everything together now, and this is definitely part of part of something that the internet brought along, but also part of what pop culture brought along, or dance music culture, just because it's mainstream these days, and there is a substantial interest of people working together. So this whole like combination of brands actually, fostering music, but also creating content as opposed to just do advertisement, and this intersection of technology and real life encounters with musicians, like that's definitely something that wouldn't have happened 30 years ago. So I would do any of the things that I do now, but not all of it together.
Interesting. You guys have any questions or thoughts to share? Or
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting conversation about the role of influencers in building the career of an artist. It's a topic I find fascinating. There's a lot of businesses online that help artists and individuals manage their fan bases, but there are no obvious ways for emerging artists to build their fan base in the first place. And this is an insight that a friend of mine has tapped into, and he's trying to build a business that helps people with fan acquisition rather than fan management, because the acquisition of fans is the most important thing. And so he's basing this business around the idea of commoditizing access to influencers. Do you think it's possible to do that? Do you think it's possible to build a formula or a method or a tool that allows artists to, to look at the influencer space and build a strategy and do it in a kind of commoditized way?
Simon Cowell's been doing that like the hard way with X Factor and American Idol, but I think it's actually really interesting. But I never thought of it, but how to do that. But I think it might be possible. Really, it's going to be like really hard, and especially nowadays with the whole like being authentic and being such a big thing. Like especially in music business, it's all about like, oh, but you're mainstream. You didn't come you didn't start from zero, etc. But yeah, I think there is a way, but I have no idea how to do it. I'm being honest.
Once again, I don't believe in recipe. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about the Surface Gate. It was actually Microsoft who paid Oprah Winfrey to tweet something nice about the new Microsoft tablet called Surface, and she did a little tweet. She has, I don't know, millions of fans. She did a little tweet saying, "I love this Surface. I've already bought 5 for all my friends for Christmas." And then, like at the end of the tweet, there was sent from my iPad. So I think it's really so that doesn't look good. So what I'm saying, of course, it was a mistake and it's not a recipe, but I think people kind of are not stupid. I mean, they probably know that the Twitter Claro Ronaldo is not written by Ronaldo. I mean, and it can give you access to more people quickly, but at the end of the day, if the material that you're showing the world is not worth it, it could makes you faster. I mean, I was agreeing with your comment that it doesn't happen like that. You have to get a relay from people, and if people had millions of fans, it makes sense. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make a success out of something that's just crap. So
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with both of you in a way. Like, I think it's doable, and actually it's been happening forever. Like, if you think about payola or something like that, like institutionalized corruption, that has always been going on. So, and I just, like, today I had an email chain with, so we launched a web series, like a documentary series on internet music on our website, okay? So we work with this agency who does seeding, right? And they essentially sent me a price list of people they have in their network who have like 60,000 Twitter followers, 100,000 fans on Facebook. And they were like, if you want us to, like, I could pick the people who would post that for me. Like, so they do that. They pay these people on a payroll. They say like, whatever, here's a certain amount of money. We send you a certain amount of links every month that you have to pay, that you have to post. So I could have bought that, right? And that, you know, instantly guarantees clicks and stuff like that. So I think in short notice, like something like that could work, but in the long run, as always, like credibility is the most important thing, and like people, like I'd like to believe that quality is always more important, and that in the long run this doesn't work. But like I think in the short run, this is already happening. Like, and I don't know, like iTunes claim not to sell the top spots on the App Store. Maybe it's even true, but you know, other people obviously do stuff like that. So I think the sort of buying or institutionalized business model for influencers, I think it's happening, and it will make sense on that level as well. I don't think it's the right thing, and as a fan I would feel somewhat betrayed, if you want so, and I probably wouldn't believe that company in the long run, but that's probably a business thing.
It's a risky thing to get into when you're supposedly an influencer, because if it shows too much, you will probably lose.
I guess you draw the line between this distinction between payola and radio plugging. One is paid, one is like you pay the actual influencer, the other one is you offer them something you think they might like, and it's their choice. So it's about access to influencers.
No, I mean, I'm not judging, right? Like, obviously there's various levels, and with this guy I was like, fuck off, I don't want you, a celebrity chef, to post my video, like, and pay for that. Like, that's not even fun, right? I don't even want to do that. But and there's different levels of like, how do you say that? Of like cynicism in that, like where you can be. I mean, I could see Diplo getting signed to such an agency, and then he gets sent like 100 cool tracks from all around the world, and he can pick, oh, this month we make whatever, I don't know, dubstep from Ecuador, really cool, and like, you know, you can pick that. So there's different levels of credibility there. I can see that working.
Actually, he's been doing that, but with it's like new label inside the label.
Jeffrey?
Yeah.
No, but that's his thing. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know, him being signed by, like, let's say, a big agency, a big PR or like advertisement agency where they pay to do exactly that for their clients. Like, you know, I mean, something like, you're right. I mean, like, I think it's always a matter of like, so if you want to sustain credibility in the long run, then probably as an influencer, whatever that means, you probably shouldn't do too much of that, because otherwise people will understand what it's just like any music journalist, like the good music journalists, like John Peels of this world, they are probably legendary or were legendary because they never did something like that, and other people just said their credibility. But it's an interesting
Questions?
Thanks a lot.